Hello and welcome back to What Do You Believe? I'm still absolutely nobody special from the heart of working class USA. And if you haven't watched the previous videos, you need to go back and watch before we get started. It kind of lays the foundation for everything we're doing here. Now, little basic housekeeping, just real quick. I am certainly not a Democrat, and I'm not a Republican, not even a little bit. I think we have a need for another political party. I think these two are basically gotten to the point they're selling the working class, everybody, average Americans, right down the road. Doesn't matter which one you vote for, they're not going to do anything that's in our best interest. In the last video, we talked about the cost of education and the fact that it's so insanely high is actually the fault of Democrats and Republicans and the incompetence by which they have put in the guaranteed student loan program. I mean, that's the whole reason why the cost of education went so high. And we discussed a way to fix it that absolutely would work. It's just one idea. There's others out there also. So in the spirit of that, another big topic today is healthcare. The radical left likes to talk about Medicare for all, or democratic socialists, and how great it would be for everybody. Except for it wouldn't. Because people don't understand how Medicare for all would actually work. And they're not going to tell you, and neither is the news. You see, if you work in healthcare, this might be very important to you. You see, Kamala Harris, you can go back, watch it in the presidential debates, you can see it live in a living color, said she'd get rid of private health insurance. Everybody would have Medicare for all. Well, everybody but Congress, right? They get to keep their awesome health insurance. Everybody else gets Medicare for all. So, some things that we probably need to look at there. If you work for a hospital or some kind of a clinic somewhere in healthcare, this would include dentist office and everything else because Medicare takes over all of healthcare. Then if you do away with private insurance, you also do away with the reimbursement for healthcare from private insurance. Now, to put that in perspective, Medicare pays anywhere between 30 and 50% less for healthcare than private health insurance. So when your hospital or whatever clinic, doctor's office, imaging lab, whatever it is you do, wherever it is that you work, when you lose the reimbursement from private health insurance that is 30 to 50% higher, it means virtually overnight your employer is going to lose 30 to 50% of the revenue. Think about it. Private health insurance pays 30 to 50% more. That reimbursement, well, that's money coming into your healthcare facility, whatever it is, wherever it is you work. That's revenue. What do you think happens when your employer loses between 30, if we just figure out an average of 40, and it'd probably be north of that, but if you just say they lost 40% of their revenue, what's your employer going to do? Well, you cut spending, right? Cut costs. But you're in healthcare. Price of bandages is not going to change. The price of medications are not going to change. Beds aren't going to change. Price of electricity to keep the doors open, not going to change. None of that's going to change. Now, of course, the people pushing Medicare for all, most of them are lawyers, and that may be the reason why the insane malpractice insurance rates, that's not going to change. Come on, people. You're smart enough to get this. What happened? What everybody I think already knows where this is going. What is your employer going to do to cut costs? If you work for a huge hospital complex, right, that's probably working with various universities and research and development, now you can cut research and development. That's a lot of money there. But you can't cut it out. And you can only cut it so far before, you know, it becomes a very bad thing. I mean, we still need research and development. This may be why currently we lead the world in research and development in the healthcare field. But what's the number one cost? Every employer does it. Doesn't matter what business it is. Doesn't matter what industry it is. Payroll. And you see, there's three aspects to payroll. You've got how many people, the total number of people that you employ. You have the benefits package for those people, vacation and whatnot. And then, of course, you've got the pay range for everybody within the organization. RNs get paid between this and this. If you work in radiology, you get paid between this and this, and you get the point. Even housekeeping, maintenance, all these people, they'll all have their pay ranges, and you'll be somewhere in that. If you look up they like to talk about Great Britain, right? Because they've got a national health care. If you look up how much an RN makes in Great Britain, it's about $25,000 a year. Yeah, less than half. It's 25,000 pounds, actually, not dollars. Convert that over to dollars, it's a little bit more than that. But that's considerably less. That's LPN money here. Considerably less than what most RNs make. If you look up a nurse practitioner, they make about a little bit less than half of what a nurse practitioner here makes. And therein lies the problem. Medicare for all, if you work in healthcare and you vote for Medicare for all, you've got to realize you just voted for a pay cut. Because these hospitals they're going to lose between 30 and 50% of their revenue. They're going to have to cut money somewhere. They already know that there are thousands of hospitals around the country, a lot of them in rural areas. They're not going to make it. They're going to shut down. In other words, healthcare for rural America will take the worst hit it's ever seen. Won't matter if they have insurance. There won't be anywhere they can go to get health care. Unless you're going to subsidize all those hospitals, which is going to drive the cost of Medicare for all through the roof. Now, why do you think Medicare for all, you don't hear any of these politicians saying that Congress would lose their insurance and they would also be on Medicare for all? You don't see that. And you don't see anybody in the news in any of these debates asking anybody hard questions, like the ones that lead down the road that I just showed you. I mean, what happens to pay in healthcare? Well, it goes down. It has to. You don't have a choice. You cannot lose that kind of revenue and just make it up through other means. You're in healthcare. What else are you going to do? You going to sell cars too? I don't think so. So what happens is a lot of people get out of healthcare. We actually know that's going to happen because there's already been doctors and other people say that's exactly what they'll do. Get out of healthcare. Well, when the pay rates go down, what do you think is going to happen after that? All of the people who are getting into healthcare, do you think that number will stay the same? And considering that this is Medicare for all and supposedly everybody's going to have insurance, your number of patients is probably not going to go down. It's probably going to go up. So, which is exactly what you see happen everywhere else. They like to talk about Canadian healthcare. They give you a snapshot of all of the nice, pretty things about Canadian healthcare, but they leave a lot of it out. Like the average wait time right now for an MRI is 10 weeks. And the Canadian healthcare system is still kind of going downhill because fewer people are going into healthcare. and wait times will continue to grow. But they're already got bad enough that one of the things that they leave out every time they talk about Medicare for All and talk about Canada is the fact that the Canadian healthcare system got sued by Canadians. Specifically, it got sued by Canadians that had money. Went all the way to the Canadian Supreme Court. The whole crux of the lawsuit was there is no way the government can force people to endure these wait times. It's inhumane. And if you've got the money to get better health care, you should be allowed to do it. The Canadian Supreme Court agreed with them, sided with them, and the Canadian healthcare system lost. So now in Canada, you've actually got two healthcare systems. One for everybody that has money, and one for everybody else. Do you see actors and actresses, Google actors and actresses who have fired their assistants because their coffee was too hot, it was the wrong coffee, the sandwich wasn't made right, they ordered the wrong sandwich. I mean, you see these people sitting in a doctor's office with random people off the street waiting for health care? I don't. How about musicians or athletes? Or how about all of the super rich? You see them waiting for health care? Because I don't. If they sued Canada and won, that lawsuit will probably happen twice as fast here because these people have more money and our legal system is about as corrupt as our government anymore. They're not really there to protect the average person or protect our constitutional rights. We've seen this. It'd probably go through our court system twice as fast and probably lose twice as fast as it did in Canada. So then we'll have three healthcare systems. One for Congress, one for the rich, and then one for everybody else. People, that's the way it's going to happen. There's no reason why it wouldn't. This is America. The rich get what they want. Stay focused. Sorry, I just had a bunch of things pop in my head, but I'm not going to get off on those. Well, those are for different videos. How do you fix healthcare? Is there ways to fix healthcare without doing that? Oh, absolutely. Just like there's ways to fix education without the government doing it. You see, private industry is 10 times more efficient and 10 times more motivated. So you've kind of got to look at what causes the problems, like we did with education. One, the mental midgets in Washington actually made it illegal for Medicare to negotiate the rates of pharmaceuticals with the big pharma companies. They can't negotiate. So where they should be paying, like Canada pays $40-50 a month maybe for insulin. Not here. Even Medicare pays 4 times that amount. And all of a sudden, you start looking at it, and if the Medicare budget is $1 trillion, which is pretty close, it's 900 and something billion. If it was just $1 trillion, that means if Medicare should have spent $200 million on pharmaceuticals, they probably spent closer to $600 or $700 million, which means their reimbursement rates to hospitals and everything else were less than half of what they should have been. See how it works? And you come out in the private sector, and you've kind of got the same thing. Big pharma is a huge cost of healthcare. It's a huge cost on insurance. But there's a problem, right? People go to Canada to get insulin. And I read a story just the other day. Five families have went to Canada, and what would have cost them $12,000 in the United States cost them $1,200 in Canada. Why is there that big of a disparity? Well, it's simple. And actually, it's easily fixable. You see, it would take a Congress that was actually working for the American people to do it. That would be the Democrats and Republicans. And as we keep going, I think you will clearly see that is not what they're there for. They're there to get rich, which is why so many of them have. Now, when there's that kind of a differential in cost, and you're talking about healthcare. This is the quality of people's lives. It could actually be life and death itself. Some of these medications is what's helping keep people breathing, right? But we're in America, so we're Americans. We can afford more. There's a word for that. It's called extortion. You guys have got money. If you want to keep breathing, you'll pay. That's extortion. And it's allowed by the nitwits in Washington. So what you do is you write a little law to get it back under control. It's not that hard to do. We'll pay the international average of first world countries for any medication that is available somewhere else. Say like if it's $40 a month in Canada and $50 a month in Great Britain, we'll pay $45. That's it. And you allow the insurance companies to reimburse that amount. That's what they're going to give them. No arguing, no negotiating. That's what you get. If it can be if everybody else can afford to sell it for that, so can you. Now, anytime a pharmaceutical gets above a certain number of dollars per dose, you make the government go in and look at the actual cost, research and development, and everything else. And we'll determine what your profit margin is. Fairly. But we'll determine what it is. And if it's still above a certain number of dollars per dose, we do something different with it. But we'll get to that here in a second. You get pharmaceuticals under control, you'll cut the cost of private health insurance probably in half. Seriously. All by itself. Possibly more. Now, health insurance. What do we know about insurance? If you are a company and you insure one person, it'd be really stupid because, well, you're only insuring one person. Whatever the cost you generate, you're still responsible for because you can't spread it out. But if you insure 1 million people, make it something simple. House insurance, right? Home insurance. If you're insuring 1 million people, and this one little neighborhood over here gets storms and hail damage on the roof, say it affects 100 of your customers. Well, if you got 1 million, there's over 999,000, because it's only 100 people, right? All of their insurance premiums get spread out to go pay for your roof damage, right? That's how insurance works. The other thing is competition. If there's 50 companies selling insurance, why would anybody buy yours? Well, it covers the most for the cheapest price. So, what have we seen happen? Well, that's the nitwits on the state level. Limiting how many people can sell insurance in their state, limiting who can sell insurance in their state, and then telling them what all they've got to cover. So, you can't spread that cost out, because you've reduced your number of people. So we make it really simple. And it will work. Just listen up. First of all, do away with state level corruption. If you want to sell insurance, this is a national crisis, the cost of healthcare. So in the name of getting better and more affordable insurance, nobody should argue with this, right? If you want to sell insurance in the United States, that's fine. You make one website for everybody. You eliminate the need for advertising on television. Or if you want to do it, you can, but it's pointless. The cost of maintaining that website, building that website, gets spread evenly amongst all the insurance companies. They'll do it cheaper than the government would, like Obamacare. But there should have been a criminal investigation into how much money that cost. That was obscene. They can build it they can maintain it. And the thing of it is every single insurance company that's going to sell health insurance will be on that website. Second, we get a hold of medical professionals all over the country. Your doctors, your ER doctors, your family doctors, all your radiologists, oncologists, and all those, physical therapy, everything. Everybody in healthcare. Determine what routine healthcare is. Anything that is caused by an injury or an illness, disease, you get it. That would be cancer, diabetes, and everything else. Everything in between. All the way down to your common cold, seasonal allergies. If it's a disease or an injury, we'll cover it. Now, that's routine healthcare. So that's what everybody covers. No pre-existing conditions, nothing. People, when you make it the same for everybody, and everybody who's going to sell it, you go to one place to find it, your cost for a single woman, single man, married couple with 1 kid, 2 kid, 3 kid, it's all going to be there. Your rates are all going to be there. If you have any incentives that you want to add so that people will buy your insurance over somebody else's insurance, that'll be there too. If there's any restrictions, that'll be there too, in layman's terms, to where an eighth grader can read it and understand it. Now, you do that, and the cost of health insurance will cut down probably by more than half, because you increase competition and you put the market back in control. But you've got to add some constraints, like we did the pharmaceuticals. I mean, that's extortion. That's all it is, plain and simple. That should be illegal, and we can make it illegal. Pharmaceuticals companies spent like $400 billion on research and development. Yay, better drugs. Good for us. They spent over $500 billion buying back their own stock to raise their stock prices, something that used to be illegal until the nitwits in Washington changed it. We need to change it back. That way, if you are good, if you're smart, you'll make it and you'll succeed. Granted, the CEO's probably going to lose a little bit on their paycheck and their bonuses, but you'll make it, and you guys have made extorted America long enough. If if it's hard on you, tough. I don't think the average American cares anymore. Next, we go back to what we were saying earlier. If a drug gets above a certain dollars per dose, if a set of procedures, if you got to fix something but you can't do it just one procedure, it's going to be 5, right? If that gets above a certain number of dollars, those will get absorbed by all insurance companies, including Medicare. Spread that cost out over the largest area you can. But as soon as Medicare gets involved, they actually can and will control the costs. Now there's one more aspect, right? Medicare for All is supposedly to insure those people who don't have insurance. Well, there's a little bit there they're probably not actually telling you to. Saw an interview with a homeless guy in California. Wouldn't go to a shelter. There's free shelters. He wouldn't go. His dad and his brother are still alive. They offered to let him come and stay with them. They'd help him get back on his feet. Now, this guy is an addict. He admits that freely, openly. He refused all of it. He refused help from his family. He refused to go to a free shelter. Some people are where they are because, well, they don't want help. They're not willing to take help. And as tragic as that is, there's quite a few people like that. Now, you've got the rest. Everybody in America already has access to health care. They don't tell you that. There's, if I remember correctly, it's Emerita. If you walk into any ER, they have to treat you. They cannot put you back out on the street until you are medically stable. That's the law. Now, hospitals typically always write that off. Person doesn't have anything, you can't bill them, right? However, we'll cover there's a way to kind of cover that. Allow hospitals to bill insurance companies Now this bill goes to all of them, and Medicare for all, and Medicare, not Medicare for all, just Medicare. The cost of that visit, just the cost. I don't mean, and I'm not talking about administrative costs. No. The CEOs and people who run hospitals are not going to get rich off this. If they had a nurse and a physician assistant or a nurse practitioner, you can bill those hours. If they went to surgery, you can bill the cost of the anesthesia. You can bill the cost of the sterilization of the tools and instruments. You can bill for the physical costs of their visit. That's it. No administrative costs, none of that stuff. What it actually physically cost you to do that procedure. Now, you spread that out over all insurance companies. Yeah, you raise the cost back up. But you also kick it to Medicare because they'll oh no. What'd you bill for that? They'll get involved and because that's what they do. They love just cutting the costs to healthcare. That's why Medicare for all is not as good as people say it is. They only pay 80% on insulin pump. The people are still required to pay 20% of it, and they're not cheap, right? So don't think Medicare is going to be this bright and shining star, right? But when you spread out the costs that hospitals normally write off, well, everybody's insured. It doesn't matter how poor you are, you can go to the hospital and you can get insurance, you can get taken care of. And a hospital will be less inclined to turn you away because, well, they'll get to recoup their costs. It won't cost them as much money. Then hospitals can drop their prices a little bit because they're not going to be writing off near as much. See, this is kind of the way it happens. We could probably wrap it up there and call it a good day, but we're not because there's one other aspect that we need to deal with. So at this point, just to recap, we've probably cut the cost of health insurance by more than half. But there's still a couple things to address. One, if your employer, now keep in mind, cost is less than half, they could pay the same amount they are now and probably get twice as much of your insurance covered. So if an employer wants to pay 25% of your healthcare premium, we'll let them write off 25% of that cost. Yeah. Make it cheaper on employers to cover your health insurance. Now you're transferring the cost into the private sector also. If they pay 50% of it, we'll let them write off 35%. They pay 75%, we'll let them write off 45%. They pay 100%, we'll let them write off 50%, but that's as high as we go. Now you transfer the costs of health insurance. Again, got to constrain capitalism and corporate greed a little bit. None of this, the CEOs get one insurance and everybody else gets something else. No, it's all the same or not at all. Now you incentivize the private sector to start paying for it more than they are now. Why? Because it won't cost them as much. Now you're talking possibly super cheap health insurance that covers everything. There's one more thing. And the other thing is how we go about healthcare. Preventative healthcare. If your family has a history of heart disease, run it. Don't wait till somebody's 40 or 50 and let them come in and then find out, oh, you need bypass surgery. That's dumb. That's just not smart, and we know better. So do the first stress test at 25. If people's got a history of cancer, start doing screens, looking for it in blood work early. Mammograms. I don't know anything about mammography or breast cancer, other than it's a horrible thing. But if we start screening now at 50 or 40, whatever it is, back it up 10 years. Start checking 10 years sooner. When you catch it and it's the size of a pea instead of the size of a golf ball, well, one, far less traumatic on the person who's got it. Two, far cheaper because it can probably be done as an outpatient procedure. Three, now you know to watch for it in the future, and we can increase the number of checkups. And four, doesn't cost us as much. Doesn't cost them as much, doesn't cost us as much. Preventative health care needs to be aggressive. That brings the cost of health insurance up a little bit now, but when you're not getting open heart surgery and you can control it with medication, guess how much cheaper that is 10 years from now? Or you eventually go in for interventional cardiology, they balloons and stents, instead of double bypass. I mean, how much cheaper is that? People, we can drop the cost of healthcare in this country by a ton. We can bring it back down to very affordable levels. We just have to put certain constraints on it. Now, what do you believe? Medicare for all? Come on. You know in the back of your mind that's not a good idea. It will end up working just like the whole guaranteed student loan program. The cost of that will spiral out of control because you're going to lose a bunch of hospitals. They won't be able to make it on Medicare for all. And they already know this. There's already been interviews. They've already admitted this, some of them. Been some time ago, and you probably won't see them on TV anymore, but you know some hospitals won't make it. Rural hospitals, a lot of them. So once again, Medicare for all is basically selling the working class down the river. There are way better ways to do it that would be way cheaper, and you do a plan like the one I just laid out. Well, not only do we not raise your taxes, we incentivize private industry, the private sector, to pay for part of the costs. You get more for less and no raising your taxes. Taxes. That's the Democrats. Tax and spend. Don't ever look at what's causing the problem and deal with that because that's the cheapest way to go. Just admit there's a problem and then figure out a way to explain to everybody we want to tax you more and spend more. It's not a good solution. Of course, you got the other side of the aisle, the Republicans. Yep, it's a problem. We're working on it. I mean, how long have we heard that? I mean, when was the last time we saw any really intelligent solutions come from the right? There's been a few, but a handful. But we've got more than a handful of problems. And we don't have any politicians that are serious about fixing any of them. This is what do you believe? And I'm still absolutely nobody special. The best thing you can do is share this. Hit the subscribe button, that puts me in your subscription list. Hit the bell icon, that'll actually notify you when I post a new video. But share it. Especially probably this one. To anybody in healthcare. Because you need to understand all the stuff they're not telling you. And you can look at this and walk through it again and tell me why it won't work that way. Give me a legitimate, sound reason. And because I talked with lots of people and I haven't heard one yet. So, but anyway, we're off and running, and these videos are only going to get more, what? Let's just say we're going to keep going along these lines. We're not stopping. Hope everybody's having a good day and being safe.